I never thought I'd be the guy writing about something like this, but here I am. My name's Jake, and I've been with my wife, Lisa, for about 5 years now. Things seemed fine, good, even at first. We met during college, both ambitious, both a little goal-driven, and we clicked pretty fast. I thought I'd found someone I could build a life with. We got married pretty young, and honestly, for the first few years, everything was smooth sailing. We had our routines, our plans, and I thought she was the one. But lately, I'd started noticing little things, little weird signs that maybe something was off. For starters, Lisa had become more distant. She'd cancel plans at the last minute, claim she was busy with work, but then come home late and tired, acting like she hadn't been with anyone. When I'd ask her about her day, she'd brush me off or give some flimsy excuse about meetings or deadlines. She started dressing differently, too, more revealing, more confident, and honestly, I felt a strange mix of pride and suspicion about it. It's like she was trying to send some kind of signal, but I couldn't quite put my finger on what. One particular thing that really set me on edge was her phone. She'd be secretive about it, always holding it tight, always muttering nothing when I'd ask to see it. I'd catch her deleting messages or hiding her phone when I came into the room. I knew women don't have to show every text or message, but the way she was acting, I don't know, it was just off. I started spying without meaning to, sneaking glances when she wasn't looking. That's how I found out she was hiding stuff from me. It all came to a head one night when I happened to be home early from work, something I rarely do because of my schedule. I was in the living room doing some work on my laptop when I decided to check the security app on my phone. We have cameras installed around the house for security, and I figured I'd just glance at the footage for the hell of it. Nothing unusual, right? But what I saw, that's what shattered everything. There she was, Lisa, meeting with some guy in our office conference room after hours. The footage was clear. They weren't just talking about business. It was obvious from the way she leaned in, touched his arm, and laughed at his stupid jokes that this was more than just work. And the guy, some investor we'd been courting for my startup, Mark. I knew him, he's a decent guy, but the way Lisa was with him, it wasn't just professional, it was intimate. They had their heads close, and I swear I saw her hand brushing his leg at one point. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I couldn't believe it. I played the footage over and over, thinking maybe it was some kind of mistake, but no. There they were, completely oblivious to being caught. They left the office, her arm around his waist, and headed out into the night. That was the moment I realized my wife was cheating on me, right under my nose for months. All the signs made sense now, her coldness, her secretiveness, her lies. And what made it worse? She was so good at hiding it. She'd lie to my face, deny everything, tell me I was overreacting or imagining things. But I knew better now. That discovery hit me like a freight train. I felt sick, betrayed, angry. I couldn't sleep. That night, I kept replaying the footage in my head, trying to figure out how I missed all the signs, how I didn't see this coming. Suddenly, the person I thought I knew, the person I married, was a stranger. And the worst part, I didn't even know how deep her betrayal went. This wasn't just a fling, this felt like a whole other life she was living behind my back. I'd trusted her, but now, I didn't know if I could ever trust her again. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My head was pounding, and all I could think about was that footage. I sat there in bed for a while, just staring at the ceiling, trying to process what I'd seen. It was surreal. I kept telling myself it couldn't be true. Maybe I was overreacting, maybe I misinterpreted. But deep down, I knew the truth. No matter how much I tried to deny it, I had the evidence right there on my phone. I decided I had to confront her. There was no way I could keep pretending everything was normal. I had to hear her lie to my face. Or better yet, catch her in the act. So I waited until she got home that evening, acting normal, pretending I didn't know anything. I even cooked dinner, an attempt to keep things calm, to keep her off guard. Inside, I felt like I was about to explode. When she finally walked through the door, she looked different, more confident, maybe even a little smug. She tried to act like everything was fine, like she hadn't been caught on camera. But I wasn't having any of that. I sat her down, pulled out my phone, and played the footage right in front of her. Her eyes widened for a second, then she immediately started to lie. "Oh, come on, Jake," she sneered. That's just some stupid footage. You're reading into it too much. You're paranoid. Maybe Mark was just helping me with the business, nothing more. She laughed awkwardly, trying to brush it off, but I wasn't having it. I told her I saw her, every move, every touch. I told her I knew she'd been cheating on me with that asshole. Her face twisted into this bitchy glare and she snapped. You're crazy. You're overreacting. It's just business. You're jealous that. I lost my cool then. How could she lie so blatantly? How could she pretend she didn't see how much she hurt me? I told her I wasn't stupid, that I knew exactly what was going on, that I'd seen enough. Then she started yelling, calling me insecure, accusing me of snooping because I didn't trust her. That's when I realized her lies were just gonna get worse. She thought she could get away with it, that she could keep her secret life hidden forever. That night I felt a whirlwind of emotions, anger, betrayal, sadness. I wanted to scream, to cry, to break something, but I kept my cool, mostly trying to think straight. I knew I had to decide what to do next. Was I going to forgive her, confront her further, or was this the end? Honestly, I was furious, but I also felt a crushing sense of heartbreak. I thought I knew her, and now I saw her for what she really was. A liar, a cheater, a bitch who didn't give a damn about our marriage or my feelings. I spent hours packing around the house, trying to figure out how I'd let it get this far, how I'd missed all the signs, how I'd been blind to her manipulation. All my trust, my security, shattered in one night. I kept asking myself if I should stay or leave, if I could even forgive her after what I'd seen. Part of me wanted to grab her by the shoulders and shake her, demand she tell me everything. But I knew that wouldn't solve anything. The damage was done. All I knew was that I'd never trust her again, not the same way. And somewhere inside, I started to think about revenge. Not some petty shit, but making her pay for the pain she caused me. I wasn't just hurt. I was furious that she could be so cold, so ruthless. I wanted to make her feel what I felt. I wanted her to realize what she lost. That night, I started formulating a plan, not just to dump her and walk away, but to make her understand that she'd crossed a line she could never come back from. But for now, I just sat there, numb, waiting for the moment I knew would come when I'd decide what I was really going to do. Over the next few days, I kept replaying everything in my head. The betrayal wasn't just a one-time thing. It felt like it had been building up for months. I kept asking myself, how could she do this to me? We had plans, dreams, things I thought we both wanted. But she was out there, sneaking around with Mark, pretending to be the perfect wife while secretly destroying everything we'd built. The anger simmered beneath my skin, but I knew I couldn't just lash out without planning. If I was going to get revenge, it had to be cold, calculated, and effective. I started gathering evidence beyond the footage. I checked her phone again, sneaked a peek at her email when she wasn't looking. Found some messages, flirty, suggestive texts between her and Mark, all innocent enough on the surface but loaded with innuendos and double entendres. She'd been making plans with him behind my back for months. I also noticed some receipts from restaurants and hotels, places I knew she'd never mentioned. It was all there. She'd been lying to my face for a long time. It was during this period of intense scrutiny that I realized I had a weapon. I wasn't just going to confront her and hope for the best. No, I was going to turn her own lies against her. I decided I'd create some kind of trap, something to expose her fully, to make her see that I knew everything. I wanted her to feel cornered, vulnerable, to see that I wasn't some naive fool anymore. If I was going to lose her, it'd be on my terms. So I started planning carefully. I made a fake email account, got some of her messages printed out, and planted the evidence where she'd find it. I wanted her to realize I had her dead to rights. One afternoon, I set everything in motion. I sent her a message from the fake account, pretending to be someone who knew about her affair, someone who was blackmailing her for more money or information. I wanted her to panic, to realize I'd been digging through her stuff for days. When she got the message, her reaction was priceless. She started sweating, trying to cover her tracks, acting all defensive. That's when I knew I had her exactly where I wanted her. The next day, I confronted her again, armed with everything. I laid out all the evidence, the footage, the emails, the receipts. I watched her spin her web of lies, trying every trick in the book to deny everything, to minimize it. She called me paranoid, accused me of stalking her, said I was just insecure, but I wasn't buying it anymore. I could see her real face, bitchy, manipulative, and totally shameless. I told her I knew she'd been cheating on me with Mark and that this game was over, that I was done pretending, done being her fool. Her reaction: she got even more aggressive, started yelling, calling me a jealous moron who was ruining everything. She said I was overreacting, that I was just insecure because I wasn't satisfying her in bed anymore. That sex doesn't mean anything, she spat. I felt like I was losing my mind. How could she say that? How could she be so cold? I realized then that her lies had no bottom. She convinced herself that she could get away with it, that she was untouchable. I knew I had a choice. I could let her keep lying, keep pretending that this was all just a big misunderstanding, or I could do something about it. Deep down, I knew I couldn't stay with someone who'd cheat on me, who'd lie so blatantly, who didn't even care about the damage she'd caused. I decided I'd had enough. I told her I was done, that I was leaving, that I wanted a divorce. Her face twisted in fury and disbelief. She screamed at me, called me every name under the sun, but I just stood there. I'd made my decision. It was over. That moment, I felt a strange sense of relief mixed with a deep sadness. I was finally free from the betrayal, but the pain still lingered. It was like waking up from a nightmare you couldn't quite forget. I realized I'd never be able to look at her the same way again. And honestly, I don't know if I'll ever fully get over this. But I knew one thing: I was never going to let her hurt me like that again. Not without paying the price. After I told Lisa I was leaving, she didn't even try to deny it anymore. The bitchy, confident mask she'd been wearing melted away in an instant. Her eyes darkened, and for a second she looked genuinely furious, not just at me, but at herself for getting caught. She spat out some nasty insults, called me naive, called me a fool for trusting her all this time. Honestly, I didn't care anymore. All I felt was this strange mixture of relief and devastation. I'd finally taken a stand, but I knew the fallout was going to be a mess. I packed up some of my things that night, not in some dramatic way, but just enough to get out of that shithole she called a home. I didn't want to drag it out. The thought of her lying, cheating, and pretending everything was fine made my stomach turn. I wanted to get away, clear my head. I stayed with a friend for a few days, but even then my mind kept circling back to everything I'd discovered: the secret meetings, the lies, the betrayal. It's like a virus in my head I couldn't shake. During those days, Lisa called me nonstop, trying to guilt-trip me, crying, begging me to stay, promising she'd change, saying it was all a mistake, that she loved me. But I wasn't buying any of it. I'd seen her real face now, and I knew that love, if it ever existed, was gone. I felt nothing but disdain. She was manipulative, selfish, and utterly unrepentant. The woman I married was dead to me now. All that was left was anger and a deep, bitter sense of betrayal. I'd started to think about revenge more seriously. Not some petty revenge, but something that would really make her pay for what she did. I wanted her to understand that her actions had consequences. I knew she'd been playing me for months, lying through her teeth, pretending to be the perfect wife. I wanted her to see that the life we'd built was a lie, and that I was no longer the naive fool she thought I was. So I decided to mess with her head a little, just enough to show her she couldn't keep doing this without consequences. I started by enlisting a private investigator, someone who could dig into her other activities, her contacts, her whereabouts. I wanted to know if this Mark thing was just the tip of the iceberg, or if she'd been sleeping around with others too. The investigator found some things I'd suspected: more texts, some secret meetings, even some financial transactions that didn't add up. It all confirmed that she'd been cheating on me more than just with Mark. That realization hit me hard. She wasn't just a cheat, she was a serial manipulator. Meanwhile, I began to gather everything I could to prove her infidelity: screenshots, recordings, even some audio of her talking to friends about her secret life. I wanted her to see I was serious. I wasn't just leaving her. I was going to make sure she never lied to anyone again, not without consequences. I wasn't planning some grand revenge that would backfire. I wanted her to feel how it was to be exposed, humiliated, and utterly powerless. One night I sat her down again, this time with all my evidence laid out. I told her I knew everything about Mark, about her other affairs, her lies. Her face went pale and she started to panic. She threw a fit, accusing me of stalking her, claiming I'd lost my mind. I looked her dead in the eyes and told her she'd pushed me to the edge. That she'd ruined everything, not just for me but for herself. I warned her that I wasn't going to let her get away with it, that she'd pay a price for all. The pain she caused. Her reaction was classic. She tried to turn it around, make me feel guilty, say I was the one who was insecure and jealous, but I'd had enough. I told her I didn't want anything from her anymore, that I was done pretending she was innocent, that I was planning to take her to court to get everything I deserved, her house, her assets, whatever she thought she could hide. I wanted her to realize, finally, that she couldn't manipulate her way out of this. Not anymore. The anger kept building inside me, but so did a strange sense of clarity. I knew I'd survive this, that I'd be better off without her manipulations. I also realized how much I'd let her walk all over me, how I'd ignored the warning signs, how I put up with her bullshit because I wanted to believe in us. But now I saw everything so clearly. She was a liar, a cheat, and a bitch. And I was done being the fool. It was time to close this chapter and move on, no matter how much it hurt. The days following my confrontation felt like walking through a fog. I knew I'd done the right thing, cutting her out, exposing her lies, but that didn't make the pain any easier. Deep inside, I was furious. Furious at her for betraying me, for lying, for pretending she loved me when she was out there screwing around. But I also felt an odd sense of relief, like finally breathing after holding my breath for months. Still, the wounds ran deep, and I knew it was going to take time to heal, if I ever really did. I moved out of the house, leaving her to her chaos. I rented a small apartment nearby, just enough space to get my head straight. I needed to distance myself from her toxicity, from the memories of what I thought was my life. Every day, I kept looking at the evidence I'd gathered, trying to remind myself that I was better off without her. But it wasn't easy. There were moments I'd sit alone and wonder how I missed all the signs, how I'd been so blind to her lies, to her manipulations. It made me question everything, even myself. In the aftermath, I started to reconnect with friends, family, people who could remind me of who I was before all this chaos. I also sought legal advice, figuring out how to get everything sorted out, my property, my savings, any potential child support if she decided to fight me. The lawyer told me I had a strong case, especially with all the evidence I'd collected. Part of me felt guilty for tearing everything apart, but a bigger part knew I couldn't stay in a relationship built on lies and betrayal. I'd lost myself trying to keep it all together, and now I was finally waking up. Meanwhile, Lisa wasn't taking it well. She called, texted, even showed up at my new place trying to guilt-trip me into coming back. She'd cry, throw tantrums, say she loved me, that she'd change, but I wasn't falling for it, not anymore. I saw her for what she was, a manipulative, selfish woman who only cared about herself. I knew if I ever went back, I'd be a fool again. So I stood my ground, told her I was done, and that I was going to start over without her. The most surprising part: the relief I felt. Despite the pain and anger, I started to see a future for myself, one where I didn't have to live in her shadow. I began focusing on my startup, working harder than ever, building something I could be proud of. Honestly, that's what kept me going. The revenge, in some strange way, had given me a new purpose. I wasn't just a betrayed husband. I was a man who was finally reclaiming his life. Looking back, I realize I learned some harsh lessons. Trust is fragile, and it can be shattered in a second. Women like Lisa aren't worth the pain they cause if they're only out for themselves. I also learned that sometimes you have to fight dirty just to survive. Expose the lies, gather the evidence, and make sure they know you're not a pushover. Most of all, I learned that I'm stronger than I thought. This betrayal hurt like hell, but it also woke me up to what I deserve. I won't let anyone treat me like a doormat again. So here I am, trying to move on. Still healing, still processing everything, but I know I'll be okay. And if there's one thing I'd tell anyone in a similar situation: trust your instincts, gather your strength, and don't be afraid to reveal the truth. Because in the end, honesty and integrity are what matter. Betrayal can destroy you if you let it, but it can also be the catalyst for something better. I'm choosing the latter. Now, as I sit here reflecting on everything, I realize how much this mess has changed me. For a while, I felt broken, like I'd lost a part of myself that I'd never get back. But gradually, I started rebuilding. The pain has dulled, replaced by a sense of clarity I never had before. I see now that I was blind for too long, and that my trust was exploited in ways I never expected. But I also see that I'm stronger for having gone through it. The betrayal didn't just destroy my marriage, it forced me to confront who I am and what I truly deserve. I've learned to listen to my gut faster, to pay attention to the signs I once ignored. I've learned that the truth might be painful, but it's better than living in a lie. Most importantly, I've learned that sometimes you have to cut out the poison to truly heal. I'll never forget the pain, but I refuse to let it define me. Instead, I use it as a reminder of what I won't tolerate and what I want in my future. I'm now focusing on building a better life, one with honesty, integrity, and genuine respect. The startup I've been working on is finally gaining traction, and I pour my energy into that. It's my way of saying to myself that I'm still capable of creating something meaningful, despite how much I lost. I don't hold grudges, but I do remember. And I know I'll be more cautious next time, not out of bitterness, but out of wisdom. To anyone reading this who might be going through something similar, I'll say this: don't ignore the red flags. Don't let your love blind you to the truth. And if you find yourself betrayed, don't give up on yourself. Use that pain to fuel your growth. Trust is fragile, but your strength is. Pick yourself up, gather your evidence if needed, and do what's best for you. Because at the end of the day, you owe it to yourself to be happy and to be with someone who truly values you. I won't say I've completely moved on, but I am moving forward. I've learned that true happiness comes from within. And it's only when you're honest with yourself that you can find peace. Lisa's betrayal was a wake-up call, but it also became my turning point. The scars will stay, sure, but they serve as reminders of how far I've come. And I know now that I'll never let anyone take that away from me again.